Oh, I am back. Yeah, been a couple of weeks since the cricket video dropped. Not a whole lot happening at the minute. A couple of UFC cards and stuff, but didn't get to watch them live, so didn't see the point in dropping anything. But yeah, coming back this time with a look at the MLS season, which is back this weekend. I think it's 6 o'clock Saturday night, GMT. So I thought I'd have a look at a couple of the key stories ahead of the new season. As you know, it's always a really interesting league to look at because it's so different to everything else going on. I mean, the European leagues and stuff. It's if you look from the outside in, it comes across as stupidly complicated. But yeah, there's some really really big stories heading into the season that make it really really interesting this season. So yeah, first point up, the mass exodus from a lot of MLS this year. That there's a huge outgoing crop of like really promising young players that could spell trouble for quite a lot of the league. I mean, the Bundesliga in particular has used it as like a feeding ground for quite a lot. I mean, Dortmund, Wolfsburg, Augsburg, all picking up players from there. Bayern as well, I think, last season. UK now starting to take notice as well. But yeah, it's become a real proving ground for a lot of top young talent, homegrown especially. And this year there's been a really, really big crop of outgoings. I mean, George Bello jumping ship to the Bundesliga from Atlanta. Ricardo Pepi's gone to Augsburg. Justin Che to Hoffenheim. Both of them from Dallas. I mean, they're going to be considerably weaker. Tejon Buchanan moving to Bruges from New England. Arsenal picking up Matt Turner from New England as well. Daryl DK moving to West Brom and unfortunately suffering a possibly season-ending injury. Chris Mueller to Hibs. Caden Clark gone from Red Bulls New York to Leipzig, but he will come back for the remainder of the season, so that is a bonus for them. But there are a lot of big shoes left to be filled in a lot of MLS teams this season, which could lead to a bit of a power shift if they've not been replaced properly. And gives a lot of opportunity for a lot of new young talent to come in and replace. But yeah, very, very big story for the opening part of the season is just how big a hole is going to be left in the league as a whole from the huge number of young talents that have jumped ship from MLS to Europe in their postseason. Second up, powerhouse teams in MLS traditionally. A lot of them really didn't live up to expectation last year. There was some major underperforming sides there. I mean, Toronto, LA, Atlanta, couldn't quite get things right last year. Toronto, the biggest example. One of the poorest records. I think they only won 6 games all season in the regular season. I mean, the hampering of the pandemic was huge for them. I mean, they had to play in Florida for I think at least the first half of the season instead of playing at home. So guys away from families, friends, um, playing in the heat as opposed to what they were playing in Toronto. Not their own facilities. I think they were playing at a college for most of the season. But they've had a bit of an overhaul. I mean, new head coach in Bob Bradley, so they've gone with MLS proven experience, winner in the league, quite consistently. Former USA head coach, obviously pairs up with his son, who's still in the midfield. But also then the big signing of Lorenzo Insigne as possibly the big marquee signing that the league needed to sort of boost itself. I mean, coming in age 30, was one of the players of the tournament in the Euros last year, is going to be a really, really big brand for the league this year. If he kicks on and takes it seriously the way that Giovinco did, it's an even bigger name than him because, Giovinco never really did it in Juventus' side. He was a squad player. Insigne is a star from European football coming in at the back end of his prime, but still his prime years. So Toronto immediately make themselves a threat again. I mean, they're going to be back playing at home at BMO Field. They've got a big name manager. They've got a big name star to build the team around. They have shipped out Josie Altidore, so their striker situation is in flux. So whether Insigne plays through the middle and they build to him would be debatable with his size and stature. You'd think they'd want to move him wide. But Toronto are an immediate force. LA Galaxy, one of the most recognisable teams since the Beckham signing in 07. Back-to-back seasons without making the playoffs. But again, they have splashed out and brought in Douglas Costa, another star who, again, maybe isn't quite on the level of Insigne. He's a Brazilian international. He's got plenty of international caps. He's played for Bayern. He's played for Juve. Big name Premier League teams have chased him over the last couple of years. Him and Javier Hernandez, if they can link up, they will again be a threat. It's just whether they can stably keep the goals out. And of course, Atlanta United, knocked out in the first round last year. Unlike the other two, they did make the playoffs, but they're used to better. They are a powerhouse in this league only, I think, 4 or 5 years into their existence. They have done things the right way. They have again suffered from not having their marquee striker fit. So what they've hopefully got this year is that they got him fit again, and Thiago Almada as one of the marquee signings, along with the other two. Again, in a different vein, one of the wonder kids in South American football is going to come in Thiago Almada and hopefully light the league up. Could make for a very interesting watch if they can get that to work again, because they've got the team in place. It's just the unfortunate injuries that have hampered them. But yeah, Toronto, LA, Atlanta, Seattle to a lesser degree, they had their playoff run. They didn't totally underperform. People just expected them to be in the MLS Cup final. Sort of tying in quite a bit to my second point and the second story for the league with the big brands reigniting is, are big brands trendy again in MLS? For the last number of years, the direction in terms of transfers has really pivoted away from the big marquee names, but this year seems to have rejigged that slightly. I mean, yes, we've had Higuain and Nani come over, but they have very much been the anomalies compared to the norm of bringing in young, sellable players from South America to give them exposure to move to Europe. See Almiron. But this year there's been a number of names, more so than normal, that is sort of like, I have 5 in front of me here, that make you wonder whether that is slightly shifting again to some teams going, no, we need profile. Whether it's ticket sales aren't keeping up with what they want, they need to re-spark some interest again. But you know, Christian Fuchs, age 35, going to Charlotte, Xherdan Shaqiri at 30 going to Chicago, Douglas Costa to LA Galaxy at 31, DeAndre Yedlin returning to MLS and going to Miami at 28, and Insigne going to Toronto. Those are 5 considerably bigger names than would normally transfer into the league in one crop. And so it sort of begs you to wonder, are we going to see a little bit more of this if this kicks off? I mean, LA now having Costa and Hernandez, Insigne pairing up with Bradley, Charlotte, Christian Fuchs is there for more experience, I would say. Shaqiri to Chicago is a very interesting one, as it's not one I would have thought we would have seen. And Yedlin to Miami, he still classes as homegrown, but it's an established US international jumping back over, having spent a large chunk of his career in Europe. So yeah, whether the big brand signings are going to come about again, because especially for this to happen mid-season in Europe is more unusual. You would expect a lot more of this if it was guys whose contracts had expired and they're going, oh, well, I could move to a lesser team in the Premier League or a lesser team in Serie A or in the Bundesliga, or I could take a big pay packet at the end of a contract to jump to MLS. But to see this mid-season where they're actually spending on the likes of Shaqiri, it wasn't huge, but I do think that this could be a very significant shift, possibly, if these guys take off in the first half of the season, that by July, August, we might see more fill up some DP spots in MLS rosters that maybe need to shift some tickets or need to spark some interest in their fan base again. The fourth big story I have sort of bookmarked here for the for the new season ahead is that the South American raid continues in full force. Nearly 1/3 of the league went dipping into the South American market for transfers ahead of the new season this weekend. Mostly younger players, again looking at that sort of bring them in, build the profile, ship them onto Europe if they're super successful. It has been a very exciting trend for the league as a whole, because yes, it was fun to see guys at the back end of their career come over and still sort of establish themselves and show that they can still play at a level, even though they are way past their best, and it was helping brand value for a lot of teams in MLS. But to see these clever signings and using your scouting network, bringing them into America, letting them flourish in a standard that is more easily accessible to watch. You were seeing guys like Martinez, like Ladero, Rui Diaz, Brenner hopefully kicks on, showcase what they can do to a wider audience outside of the Brazilian and Argentinian leagues, and now even looking at Colombia and Ecuador and the likes. that you were now able to see these guys play, the guys you would only see in highlight reels, or that you would see marked really highly in FIFA or on Football Manager. You're getting to see them at a watchable hour with English commentary and in a easily broadcastable sense. I mean, Almada, by far the standout this year. He's one of the only ones I really know and have seen much of in highlight reels. But yeah, you're seeing Atlanta bought one, Charlotte went twice, Colorado, Dallas, Houston, Inter Miami, Minnesota, Orlando, and Portland, all dipping into the market looking for value signings from South America that they can hopefully use to better their side, to use the youth designated player slot and their three slots to build on established homegrown talent, but to bring in young, hungrier players that are driven to succeed, to get their big move to Europe, as opposed to guys that are looking to coast at the back end of their career. And I think this is about the most sensible thing that could be done from an MLS standpoint, is to continue ramping up this raid on South American football to better the pay for them, to get them the exposure, and to be able to flip them for big money if they come off, if you've done your scouting well, in 2 to 3 years' time. I think it's a very, very exciting trend. It's one of the things that makes MLS the most exciting league for me to follow on and off, because you're going to see these guys before they break now. And I think the rate on the homegrown talent from MLS to Europe's continuing, and I think we're now going to see the big flux of, go to South America, go to MLS, get your move to Europe. And I think it's a very interesting story. There's a lot of names on this list arriving into MLS this season that could be a very, very exciting watch throughout the year. And the last one I've got, it's a bit more of a downer tone, this one, to be honest. A sort of changing of the guard for MLS. It's always a league in flux. Salary cap makes things difficult. Expansion sides coming in every year or two now. Talent raids, back and forth between Europe and expansion drafts and stuff, with ripping squads apart. But this sort of seems a year more so than a lot of others, where we're seeing a lot of veterans either move from their established home, where you affiliate them with a club, or retirement. I mean, you're looking at Matt Beasley retiring. Bradley Wright Phillips is still without a club, being a stalwart of MLS. Ryan Hollingshead leaving Dallas, moving to LA after I think he's got like 200 appearances for them. Jonathan Dos Santos moving back to Mexico. Leggett, who is like one of the the guys that you most associate with LA Galaxy right now in the post sort of Donovan Beckham era, moving to the Revs. Altidore moving from Toronto to New England. Diego Valeri leaving Portland. Chris Wondolowski retiring. There's a real flux this year of like guys that you will be tuning in and going, oh, I'll stick that game on Sky because I like watching him, and he's not there anymore. It's just a rather strange one this year. There seems much more of a transition this year away from it. I know every year you're going to see this, but the notable names on this list that you associate with a team in MLS, they're just not there anymore. For a lot of, I mean, Ozzy Alonso I have on this list is moving from Minnesota to Atlanta. I as an adopted Seattle fan, I associate him still with Seattle. It was weird seeing him in a Minnesota shirt. You're only just getting used to that, and it'll be even weirder now seeing him playing for Atlanta United. But yeah, it's a fluctuating season this year. There's an awful lot going on transfer-wise, and I know a lot of these stories are transfer-based. Sort of the most thing you have to talk about before a ball's been kicked. But yeah, it's a funny season this year, and it'll be a very interesting watch. Big changing of the guard, a lot of young players who made their name over the last season or two leaving, getting replaced by South American players looking to make their name, and an awful lot of big names either no longer there or in very unfamiliar situations. So I think overall this 2022 season for MLS is going to be very, very interesting. I have no idea. I mean, I would like to say maybe the Revs, Toronto, and Seattle, the three that I can see sort of duking it out at the top of the table. But yeah, it's going to be a hugely interesting watch, and the first couple of weeks I'll definitely be tuning in and seeing. I might even do something around sort of a first impressions thing for the opening week. I will see how that works out, if I can get to see much of it, or if it'll mostly be highlight packages. But yeah, really looking forward to the 2022 MLS season, and hopefully I'll have some more stuff on this in the future. So yeah, like, subscribe, drop us a comment, let me know